Welcome back to the Pleb Underground. Enjoying another wonderful day here in paper Bitcoin summer. Guys, I've got an awesome guest. Actually, the first time I ever spoke to Jesse, or that we spoke, was on my first audio-only podcast, Fun with Bitcoin. He was just starting his journey on with Amboss.tech. We had met back in the day in Bitcoin kindergarten. Most people have no idea what that is even today. Guys, we've got an awesome show. We're going to dive into everything Amboss Tech. We're going to grill Jesse on his thoughts about the Lightning Network and its possible future. It should be absolutely amazing. And guys, before we bring Jesse up on stage, you know the deal. We're going to show some love to the Pleb Underground sponsor, and we're going to be right back. Pleb Underground is sponsored by Archimedes Emporium. Discover the pinnacle of precision engineering, starting with their Bitcoin logo wall clock, meticulously machined in Maine from a solid block of aerospace-grade aluminum, ensuring unparalleled durability and performance. Experience the difference of a product made without compromise. Head on over to Archimedes Emporium. That's right, guys. Welcome back. We are going to bring Jesse onto the stage. Jesse, thank you so much for joining me on Pleb Underground. Jesse is the co-founder of Amboss.tech. Great to have you.
Thanks so much for having me, Phil. It's a pleasure.
It's been a while, right? Like 5 years, like we were saying pre-show. It's been 5 years since we spoke. So much has happened. So look, when I first got into the space, I realized very quickly that there was nothing that I could contribute to Bitcoin, the base layer, with my current capabilities. And then slowly but surely, I started to hear about the second layer, Lightning. And then fast forwarding down, we ended up meeting in Bitcoin kindergarten, and I had you on Fun with Bitcoin, and you were starting your Amboss journey. Please tell the viewers and listeners, what is Amboss and why did you choose to go down this route?
You know, we actually talked before I even started Amboss, where I was just using satbase.org, which is still the name of my, it was basically my pleb blog to basically document how excited I was about the Lightning Network. And I needed, someone to talk to about how cool this technology was. And so that's where I was basically writing down my thoughts. But you picked up on it, and the fact that, like, hey, maybe this guy is onto something here. And basically, like, I knew the Lightning Network was going to be important because it's really like Bitcoin's native payment layer, or it's, payment utility. And I knew that Bitcoin payments themselves, like on-chain Bitcoin, just weren't going to cut it. The user experience wasn't there for them to be truly disruptive, but the Lightning Network changes that. But like, as I, dove into Bitcoin payments more, I realized that, the Lightning Network needed more infrastructure. And one of the first pieces was just being able to find other people that are using the Lightning Network and knowing how to connect them. And so that's how Amboss.space started, which is, our first explorer. So that happened like right at the same time as PlebNet, which, for additional context, it was like right after El Salvador announced that they would be adopting Bitcoin as legal tender. And then the plebs really panicked because they're like, Bitcoin isn't ready for, global payments. We can't have the people of El Salvador pay $3 to $5 per transaction and have to wait around for 6 confirmations if they're going to adopt it as money. And so that just caused this wellspring of interest in the Lightning Network, just this like sincere urge to make it work really, really well. And that's how PlebNet got started, which was the perfect time to be launching a Lightning Network Explorer that was very community oriented. And then, soon after, we launched Magma, which is a liquidity marketplace. So you can just buy and sell Lightning channels to get connected to all the plebs or other, folks that are using the Lightning Network, just to make the entire payment system work natively on Bitcoin.
Very nice. Very nice. I have to admit, one of my allures to the Lightning Network was the fact that I could provide liquidity, and over time, right, based on the number of transactions and whatnot, right, you create a stream of income. I mean, this is nothing new to a certain extent, right? MasterCard and Visa essentially offer those types of services, right? Those are payment networks, and they are simply just being paid based on the volume of transactions. So for me, it was really it was something that I wanted to understand. So when I set up my original Lightning node, I set it up to be a routing node, and I started documenting every single day what my channel balances were. And anyways, TLDR, after like a year and a half, I think I made somewhere between like 30 and 50,000 sats or something like that, which, I mean, I don't know if that's really good or bad, but I was reckless, right? I had at the time, and I don't have any of this anymore because all lost in a boating accident. But at the time, I had it was 0.89 of a BTC on my Lightning node. So
Let's go.
tell me, what is the experience of somebody who I want to, let's say I've got some corn, and I want to put this corn to work, right? And I'm saying that in quotations because nobody believes that it's real, and everybody always says to you, where does the yield come from, right? Even when it comes to Lightning, for some reason, like, I don't know what happened there, but for some reason people equate the income that you make from Lightning similarly to the way that you would get yield on, some type of an equity. So how do I start this process, right? How do I get my Bitcoin working with Amboss?
Mhm. Yeah, so we just
Yield.
launched this product called Rails, and really it means that you don't have to understand anything about Lightning. When we're talking about yield, it really comes from two sources, and like when you mention yield, there's so much PTSD that the industry has because we've experienced BlockFi, we've experienced Celsius, we've experienced FTX, and the whole idea is you have to maintain self-custody. And
Yes.
that was one of the key pieces. So this is why we built Rails to be completely self-custody. So really, it requires no prior knowledge of Lightning. It really does require that you be able to take self-custody. So as part of the setup, we spin up a node on Voltage, and from there, you're doing client-side encrypted and actually getting your seed phrase. You're
Mhm.
setting that password to set up the client-side encryption, and from there, you delegate permissions to Amboss. So Amboss is now responsible for opening and closing channels and setting routing fees and being able to receive Lightning. Those are our only permissions. We cannot withdraw from this system. And so that sets up a situation where you don't really need to trust us to like not rehypothecate your funds. There's no lending involved. And you are really now a connector on the Lightning Network that's connecting consumers to merchants. So you are a connective tissue for commerce on the Lightning Network. And that's every single payment that you're routing, that you're connecting is really a revenue source. So you become Visa and MasterCard in a fully decentralized way in self-custody, and you're not issuing like predatory fees or anything like that. The entire system works without credit or debt. So it's a complete game changer from what we've known for our entire lives about what payment systems are in this fully decentralized.
I really like that. I appreciate you explaining that. So let me ask you, how long, just realistically, how long would it take from the time that you and I, let's say, start talking, I reach out to Amboss, how long would it take from that time to the time where my Bitcoin is in Lightning channels and doing its thing? Like,
You
how long
basically
is
just
that?
tell me what email you want to use for the account, and I could spin you up like right here on this call. And then basically we would just have to wait for some confirmations for your Bitcoin to
Yeah.
deposit. And
Okay.
from there, it starts opening channels. It really is like hands-free type of situation.
You know what? I'm really, ever since I did the routing and everything like that back in 2019, I have not touched any of this. And in all fairness, anytime I think about it, I only come back to your site. So I'm like, okay, I know Jesse and I know what Jesse's doing. I appreciate what he's doing. I like the fact that self-custody, but for some reason, I cannot get over the mental block. So how do I maintain? How am I maintaining self-custody? Like what exactly is happening? I'm just trying to
Yeah,
figure out how Amboss does this. I apologize. Like I get that you're working, from what I understood, you're working with voltage, and I like the voltage dudes. And I just want to understand, like, how am I maintaining self-custody, but also my Bitcoin is being used in these Lightning channels?
Yeah, it really comes down to the kind of magic of macaroons, which were created by Google, and they are limited permission sets. It's it's so really the only thing that Amboss has is limited permissions to say, Amboss, you can open channels. Amboss, you can close channels. Amboss, you can set fees. That's
Question.
it.
So
Yeah.
question. Because I did mess around with macaroons way at the beginning. That's how I got my payment terminal to communicate with my node to do the gumball machine there, the Lightning gumball machine. So
Amazing.
you need the macaroon from my node.
I need a special set of macaroons because you'll have
Interesting.
the admin macaroon, which is
Yeah.
full permissions. And so that's what we're setting all of the Rails customers with. So they have the full permission set and they give Amboss the limited permission set. And that allows us to really just act as a service provider to the customer that wants to put their Bitcoin to work. Because we've got the Lightning network knowledge, and our customers don't want to have to think about managing channels at all. So here we are, providing a service which has just got insane demand. And just for context, like with all the Bitcoin treasury companies, it's been fascinating to watch because now they're signing up to get to talk to us. But what I've learned is that they can't take self-custody. They can't get their board to approve a self-custody setup. They have to use a registered custodian. So it is forcing them to actually take a setup that is like more self-custody. It's closer to self-custody than they would otherwise pursue. And they need ways to differentiate. And this is a killer way to differentiate that actually supports, Bitcoin and Bitcoin payments, and the Bitcoin network. So it's been a blast. I mean, we launched this, month and a half ago, basically, and it's just been incredible. The names that I've been getting to speak with have really blown me away. Here I think I'm this pleb, but really the caliber of folks that actually want to participate and want to help out Bitcoin has been really inspiring.
Well, I think also what it is that people can find it very interesting in the Bitcoin space where we get, you get like these like hardcore techies that are like, it doesn't matter if the user experience isn't good. Okay. Everyone's going to use it because it has purpose. Okay. It has value. But to a certain extent, these people I feel have never actually used or are pretending that they've never actually used a consumer product, right? The user experience is key. Okay. So if you nailed this with Rails and you made this like simple, here you go, you provide me these 3 pieces of information, you're up and running, here's your links. People are gonna love that. And especially in business, right? When you have a customer that's in pain and you can provide that solution for them and you can make it easy for them to the point where they actually enjoy implementing the solution, you've got something there. And I just want to say something very quickly because ACP, so it's a live show, right? And we get people in the chat that pop in and say stuff. So fellow Bitcoiner here, ACP says macaroons. He never heard of that. I'm going to give a crack at a very simple explanation. And you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I would say it's a form of like an authentication token, so to speak. It's not like a crypto token, so to speak, like not money token or pretending to be money token, but authentication token. Is that close to correct?
I think that's spot on. It really allows me to execute certain permissions. So yeah, it's authentication. This is how we log in, so we can like view balances, but not withdraw anything.
So I love that you shared this thing about the Bitcoin treasury companies, because I am obviously a critic of the treasury companies. My criticism is specifically for their revenues, cash flows, operating cash flows, stuff like that, right? Like, to me, a business that just creates a whole bunch of shares and issues bonds and all that stuff with never having any real business, to me, that's just a Rube Goldberg machine that's waiting to fall apart. However, it's interesting that you're telling me that some of these people are reaching out to you in order to make their Bitcoin work for them. So
Oh,
I have a little bit of hope here, man. You're giving me some hope. I'm still not a fan, but
Phil, I think you should be hopeful, because the reason that Bitcoin treasury companies are doing so well is because they're more attractive than all of the other fiat investments that are out there. Like, what you're describing sounds like a Rube Goldberg machine, but how bad does every other investment have to be for that Rube Goldberg machine to be attractive? And like, it's exposing that, and it's de-risking the financial system. If we can take that a step further and make it be beneficial to Bitcoin, the network, we've got it made. This is like truly disruptive technology, and I want to get people and the rest of the world as close to Bitcoin, using Bitcoin as much as possible, just because it's a better system, it's more honest.
Yeah. I definitely agree with parts of what you just said, right? Towards the end, I'm sorry, the Bitcoin treasury companies, I'm still, I'm gonna be critical about this, and until I'm totally wrong, right? I'm just gonna be critical until I'm totally wrong, and then I can say, all right, I was wrong. But yeah, that's okay. It's just a learning curve, and the market's going to do whatever the market does. There's going to be winners, there's going to be losers, right? We know the deal. I just don't want people to get completely over the moon over some of these businesses. Again, that has nothing to do with you guys. You guys are offering a real service, real value. You're not a Bitcoin treasury company. If anything, you're providing a mechanism for them to attempt to essentially monetize their Bitcoin in another way by minimizing that risk with Lightning. This is the way I'm taking it.
Yeah.
So,
the huge unlock is that it aligns incentives. The incentive alignment pushes them to want to take self-custody so that they can participate in this system and actually benefit from Lightning payments. Because, I think you had me say this on the previous, our recording 5 years ago, but never before has greed tempted me to live a very simple life. But basically it is greed that Bitcoin exposes, but the incentive alignment is such that if people are truly greedy, well, they would want Bitcoin payments everywhere, that you could be able to spend it. So this has been really, really fun to watch play out, because once I get people started, they see the payment activity and they want more of it. And now the big task for me is, can I point them in the right direction to use their influence, their name and their logo and their brand to actually start pushing for the adoption of Bitcoin as a medium of exchange.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. And this is, again, this all resonates with me, because for me, I came to Bitcoin from medium of exchange, right? I did not come to Bitcoin through these more noble NGU paths, right? I came here through degeneracy. So for me, medium of exchange is like, this is what I want to see. I want to see this all work. Of course, NGU and all that other good stuff. But again, to me, like, that is the most important piece, right? And the more that I see all of this financialization, and I get all the de-risking and all that fun stuff that they're doing, but for the more I see the financialization, and the more I want to just shout from the rooftops, all you need to do is buy and hold Bitcoin in self-custody. And if you wanna expand Bitcoin use, accept it as payment. And offer it as payment. Like, it's really like we make stuff so complex. So I'm really happy again to see that you're doing something like this, which enables the ease of use. Now, into monetizing your Bitcoin with Lightning. So I don't know if you answered this already. I might have missed it, but I'm guessing. I mean, obviously, you must collect some type of a fee for offering the service, right? Nobody works for free, you know. So, are you able to give us any kind of insight into that, or it's okay if you can't? I'm just wondering.
No. We list the pricing just right on the page, but it's $30 a month to actually host the node. And then we're charging 0.6% of the assets under management. That's the way it's working right now. And really the idea is that all of that goes into purchasing enough liquidity so that your node is actually useful. I mean, this is a true growth play for Amboss, but it's huge just because it really furthers the level of services that we can deliver to the rest of the network.
Question for you then. At $30 a month, can you share with me approximately how much Bitcoin I would have to a person would have to provide in order for that $30 a month to actually be lucrative?
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So
how much Bitcoin do I have to provide to earn more than $30 a month? Essentially, that's the
that's so
figure out.
Basically, we set the minimum at 1 BTC, and we really don't know how much the payment volume could increase by actually having this infrastructure, because we know that Lightning today is used for micropayments and zaps, but we also know that the rest of the payment system of the world is not limited to micropayments. So we're focused on payment reliability at large amounts. And so we're really looking for large capital allocators. And a lot of those are individuals, high net worth Bitcoiners that want to put their stack to work in the only way that seems reasonable to them and sane, and that doesn't rely on, lending and rehypothecation. So we're seeing a lot of early Bitcoiners, put big stacks on rails, grow the Lightning Network, and then it becomes more capable of doing larger payments. So if you want to pay rent over the Lightning Network, or if you want to buy hotel reservations or airline tickets, those are the big ticket items that Lightning generally struggles with. But there's huge markets out there. If we want to do like e-commerce or support high frequency trading or arbitrage, like all of those are very large payments that need to be executed quickly. And so that's the market that we want to tap, and we're going to democratize access to it by using the Lightning Network. So really anyone can participate and be those financial rails.
It's been a long time since I dug into the specifics of Lightning, but is it still 16% of a Bitcoin? I believe it is per. Was it per channel, like the max channel size?
You're exposing yourself as a very early Lightning user.
Yeah, I totally.
So that was the Wumbo limit to prevent people being absolutely reckless. So that is a configuration. I think, well, basically whenever you spin up a Lightning node, we could you just turn off the Wumbo limit, and says, I'm ready to open a 14 BTC channel, which is the largest one that we've ever seen. But imagine that, that would be
14 Bitcoin in one channel.
In one channel. So that means you could do a $1.4 million settlement. It wouldn't even have to go multi-path, and it would just settle instantly.
And it would cost pennies.
It wouldn't. I mean, basically, wouldn't cost you anything.
Yeah,
it's free.
Pretty much.
And because you're not going to route that payment anyway. It's just like your own channel. But I asked the folks at L&D, is there any limit? And they were like, absolutely. There's 21 million limit on how big of a channel you could make. I guess in response to ACP's question for Amboss's Lightning as a service, it's available in the US. It's available everywhere, anywhere where you can take self-custody.
Very cool. Okay, so here I'm gonna pull up. I'm gonna pull up here one of my one of the screenshots, stuff that we're gonna start discussing. Okay, so look, so this is from Voltage. Is this accurate? Like,
Yeah.
you know if this is
Um,
accurate? I mean, this is pretty crazy.
Now, like, I don't have access to blocks like actual node data, but
Mm,
I can tell you here's what makes this possible. It's not through payment routing per se that they're getting this, and it's not through leasing. So really what they're doing is Cash App has massive withdrawal volume because what the plebs do, and power to them, is they buy Bitcoin with their fiat payments. So using the fiat payment rail to go in, and then Cash App is withdrawing that Bitcoin, and the plebs are withdrawing it to self-custody, which is super responsible. So
hmm.
that means that, the C equals node, now called block, is basically sending out, and that's accumulating inbound liquidity. And in order to reverse that flow, that's a money making reversal. So they can actually connect to the loop out service, or
Mhm.
they can connect to the loop node, which has insane demand from all over the network. People want to swap Lightning Bitcoin onto on-chain Bitcoin. Uh,
Yes.
and that is a like kind of a if you think like a two-stroke engine, like that is that routing to loop, that is the money making stroke of this. Whereas their normal operations are pushing outward to the network, and that money making loop out routing is actually it's huge. That's how they can capture this. And just like for the market for that loop demand, how much could they monetize? It's about
Mhm.
0.4% of their withdrawal volume is essentially what they could capture. This number has very little to do with how much Bitcoin they've actually deployed on their node. It's more about the withdrawal volume.
Interesting. Very interesting. Talking about the swaps, it was Walton that introduced me to using Bolt's exchange, and
Oh yeah.
we did exactly that. Right, we swapped my online, my on my on chain transaction to his Lightning address, and it was seamless, man. It was it was one of those situations, like when you have those moments, there's like the before and after kind of thing.
Mhm.
It was one of those before and after moments where there was everything before this, and then I did this transaction, and it blew my mind. And I was just like, okay, that's it. We're pretty much here, So yeah, I got to admit, right? Like this is kind of part of the issue, right? Is that the greed aspect makes you tempts you to want to to do these things. Um, so going back to providing liquidity, I just, because we're talking about
Mhm.
self custody and liquidity. So for Amboss, um, it, am I just transferring the Bitcoin to my own node in order for
Yeah.
you to use the liquidity? Is that so? I'm just sorry because it's just
Yeah.
yeah, I can't get out of my own
Yeah.
way. Like I get
No,
to keep the whole thing, right?
the terminology gets so weird when you're dealing
Yeah.
with self-custody. Like I'm offering you a self-custody service. And that means you're going to transfer Bitcoin from your own self-custody to your own self-custody. But now this is on a server, and it is actually creating lightning channels. The way that the actual mechanism is using our Magma marketplace. So like
Oh,
really all the communication is just like so um, maybe just for context, who uses Magma? It's the
yeah.
people that actually need to receive Lightning payments. They need to get connected to the Lightning network. If I can make an analogy to like a power company, if you're a power company, well, you're going to make money with every electron that you sell, but you also need to do the connections to a home in order to make it work so you can
Mhm.
sell more electrons. So that power connection, that's what I would analogize to a lease of liquidity. So that's how Magma works. Someone is going to buy a connection. You're going to make money doing that connection. And then you're going to make money with every electron that you route. And so replace electron with Satoshis, and there you go. Now you understand how liquidity leasing works, which is that power connection, and also payment routing, which is just routing those electrons.
It's very cool. As you were explaining that, it made me think of because I did something very similar with Get Albi for our I don't know what the hell I'm pointing at back here, but for our fountain.fm, right? So that we can stream sats and stuff like that, so that people could stream us sats, and also it's connected to Nostr, so it's a similar type of thing. I bought liquidity, so to speak, right? Like I think it was like 1 million sats inbound or something like that, because yeah, that's exactly it, right? It's usually the people need inbound liquidity, so at least that's been my experience.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, were you gonna say something?
Yeah, we launched a service to kind of simplify it. And
Oh,
really,
cool.
this is where, I mean, it's called liquidity subscriptions. So basically, you say, hey, I'm planning on receiving $1,000 or $10,000 this month. And we'll say, okay, well, we'll sell the liquidity to you at 0.5% of that amount. And you could analogize that to traditional payment processing, where Stripe might cost you 4%. We can do it at a fraction of the cost, get you that liquidity, and it's actually buying it from our Rails customers. So they'll be able to fulfill that demand that you have and equip your node so that you can receive payments in a self-custody and don't have to think about liquidity. So that's also available through Amboss. Overall, it's just going to support the yield market. So really, I want to disrupt the entire payment system, and I want to replace it with Bitcoin. And this is how we do it.
Jesse's making his own MSTR flywheel over here with Bitcoin liquidity and payments. I love it. I love it. That's good stuff. Okay, here we're gonna move on to some other stuff here to look at, because we got a couple of things here. The next one I wanted to look at was actually this. And again, right, I went through your timeline, and I recognize Branta because I got to meet the CEO, or the guy that created it, at Bitcoin Plus last year, and I didn't quite understand what it was that they do, or that they did, but when I saw this on your timeline, I figured, hey, Jesse can explain to us what is going on. So, according to this post, right, Branta and Amboss teamed up to fuse Guardrail. So here we go. Branta says, goodbye hesitancy, hello confidence. We're proud to team up with Amboss to deliver Guardrail, setting a new industry standard for Lightning. Can you provide any kind of clarity on what exactly it is that you guys are doing with Branta?
Yeah. And really, it is kind of a symbiosis of the flows of information. So what Branta is doing third-party verification for everywhere that you would want to send money. Now, okay, this happened with the Bybit hack. Is that, essentially Bybit sent money and to an address that they thought was an internal address of theirs. It showed on the screen, it had all the right addresses or the right information, and everything looked good on their screen. It was their own internal site, but it was like a complete phishing attack. So the attackers had actually replaced the address where to send it to. Now, Branta is offering a service where they can actually do a third-party attestation. So you've got your internal system that's sending the address that should be receiving Bitcoin to Branta, and then Branta would be able to do third-party verification. So that essentially means that an attacker would have to hack 2 different sites or 3 different sites in order to defeat that. So it just becomes at least twice as difficult.
Oh yeah.
If not more so. So because of the way that, Branta works, where they're ingesting invoices and Bitcoin addresses, well, for a lot of these companies that are dealing with really large amounts, they're also needing to do some type of risk management. They've got rules that they need to follow. And like for most of the plebs, you know, we hate the idea of compliance. But for the businesses, they have rules that they need to follow in order to maintain their licenses. So we built Reflex, which is kind of just it's a rules engine. So whatever rules you need to follow, this will flag it if this doesn't match your rule set. And again, we don't care what rules you're setting for your own business. We just made the software to help operationalize it, because we want um, like everybody to be able to use Bitcoin, and that includes the regulated businesses as well as the plebs. Now, the plebs are never going to use Reflex, and that's fine. It does not matter to me. But I want everyone, I want the world economy onto Bitcoin. So Bronta and Amboss teamed up to actually be able to deliver the third-party verification as well as all the compliance checks that a business would want to adopt. So that's the way that those two pieces work together, and it just works really nicely in the data flows because they're passing the same information. So Bronta can set them up with all the compliance and rule set stuff.
How is compliance affecting you guys? Because you're not a money transmitter per se,
Nope.
so you don't need one of those MSB licenses. Yeah, so like tell me about your experience with compliance. Like I feel like the banking system, I feel like somebody from the banking system is knocking on Jesse's door going, "What are you doing, Jesse? You're taking away, you're making new rails and you're not paying for our rails, so what's up?" You know?
Well, it really comes down to managing your risk profile by offering self-custody products. So we've been closely watching, you know, Samurai Wallet case and how that has materialized, because that's really where it starts to question, can you do self-custody and not be regulated like a business? I mean, what types of arguments is the government going to make? And if they're making those really aggressive positions, well, then we'll just leave the country. Like, I'm not in the US now, and I could very easily leave because I've got money that has no state attached. So if you want me to remain in your country, well, then you should really think hard about, you know, whether you want to push these innovators out of the country. So we're watching the Samurai Wallet case very closely to ensure that, you know, our ability to innovate and deliver self-custody products doesn't require that we get, you know, multi-million-dollar licenses in 50 different states in order to become money transmitters. And really, we don't want to be money transmitters because that layers on all of these compliance obligations, which we didn't take that path. But we looked at that path and we're like, my God, that's expensive. Think of all the software I would have to make. And we saw all that software and be like, well, why don't we just make that software for people if they're running a startup and they want to take a regulated path? Well, here's the software package that you need to be able to do that faster. So I can have more businesses, more Bitcoin businesses with those licenses to essentially be able to do whatever, you know, offering that they want to do. Just kind of unlock the innovation and kind of reduce that compliance overhead where, I mean, we don't need more devs to have to do compliance stuff. You know, I already made it. You're just integrated into your system and then go from there. And then we can move on with our lives and do the cool stuff that we all want to do.
I really like that. And it's interesting when you started to answer that question, it reminds me a lot of the sovereign individual, right? The territories that will have the, you know, the rules that favor, right, that favor us the most are the territories that are going to gain our business, right? And that are going to gain our livelihoods and all of that, right? Which is kind of the way it should be. You know, I feel like once upon a time we were told that the government was supposed to serve its citizens, but I somehow believe that that was just a psyop to get the government in control so that the citizens could become slaves. Anyways, no more tinfoil hat takes on that one. But yeah, I'm trying to think of if there's anything else that I had for you about compliance before we move on. You were going to say something?
I'll give you some of that popped up. That was pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Well, regulated businesses, in fact, you know, most folks in the United States, well, they definitely can't send any money to North Korea. So,
That's true.
our checks would be like, oh, okay, that's a North Korean IP address. Don't send your money there, because on that audit log, it would show that you checked for it and then you sent it anyways. But basically, you don't want to do that, and also you don't want to route through them, and that is something that hasn't really been tapped into. Now, there may be routes where the most efficient path would be to route through North Korea, but the US based businesses definitely can't do that. So what if we created an alternate path that avoided that? Now, those channels that are providing that alternate route, or if North Korea is actually receiving any money over the Lightning Network, then they could be the unique connection that isn't regulated in that way. So basically, there's going to be regulatory arbitrage that would literally happen within the payment system. So basically, it's free because Bitcoin doesn't care, but we're just layering on these rules and laws and having to do kind of compliance stuff. But now we've integrate that into software, and it opens up arbitrage opportunities.
Yeah, I'm also watching that Samurai Tornado Cash case because it's multiple. If I'm not mistaken, it's two
Yeah.
cases. It's two separate cases, and from what I'm seeing, it's getting pretty scary. And in all fairness, right? I always feel like regulations and compliance just simply increase, right? And I'm not saying that to say, oh, eventually they're going to get you or something like that, because you're not doing anything wrong. But what I'm saying is that I always find that these larger entities always want their piece of the pie, even though it's not their pie. Like this is something else that you're doing that's completely different. You're not using their rails. You're not doing any of their stuff. And yet, they're going to come knocking on your door and they're going to be like, Jesse, where's our piece of the pie? I don't know. I get kind of worried about
really,
that stuff,
It really flipped the script, though, because we're the ones with power. You can put 12 words in your head, and leave the country with all your money. If they want to get aggressive, that is fully within your power. And Bitcoin has been one of the most empowering technologies that I've ever encountered, and happy to watch it play out, because we've got the power now.
I agree. I know sometimes it doesn't feel like we have the power now, but we do. Sometimes it doesn't, especially when I see the paper Bitcoin summer. Hey, all right. We've got Nate here from Voltage. That's right, Nate. What's up? Talking with Jesse. Okay, we're gonna move on to some lightning criticism. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, we're gonna move on to some lightning criticism. Here we go. So this was a thread. Okay, I'm not gonna read the whole entire thread. We're just gonna do high level stuff, but I'm very curious as to your takes. So John Carvalho, right, longtime Bitcoiner, Bitcoin Aerolog. For the people who don't know him, you should know him at the very least, from his amazing interview with Roger Ver, where he got Roger to rage quit. This was all many, many years ago. This was during the Bcash, Bitcoin fork, and the block size wars. Now, John often has very, I think, controversial takes, and it's, to me, it's not about right or wrong. It's about seeing the take and questioning your own beliefs. Well, what is it that I think about what this person is saying, and where do I stand in this, and whether or not we're willing to recognize, right, some accuracy in this. So anyways, all that to say, let's dive into some of the criticisms, right? So the Lightning Network doesn't scale. This is what he claims. I don't necessarily agree with that, but he's going to say why, right? And we're going to go through these reasons, and I want to know your take, Jesse. This is why everyone is building fake, centralized hybrid Lightning bullshit and using custodial apps. There are many reasons for this, and here are some. So before we even go on to the first one, do you really think that people are building fake, centralized hybrid Lightning BS because Lightning doesn't scale, or is it at all possibly because they're more interested in monetization than they are pushing the network forward?
Oh man, people are absolutely making fake centralized hybrid Lightning bullshit. and they're using it because they can use Bitcoin as air cover. If they say, I'm building on Bitcoin, I'm building on Lightning, that kind of protects them a bit from, maybe Congress wants to go after them. And if they're able to say that I'm building on Bitcoin, and it's completely decentralized, when the technical reality is that it's completely centralized, it's really just protecting themselves. So, you're going to have to remain vigilant about this, because people will say that they're building on Bitcoin, and this is antithetical to the mission of what Bitcoin is all about. So, anyways, steel yourselves.
Nate was just asking when this tweet was from. So for perspective, right, this tweet is from July 19th. So this week, or late last week. Anyways, okay, let's move on. I appreciate your responses on this. Okay, so here's the reasons that he gave. Okay, so liquidity, right? Each channel requires funding twice. Okay, because of course he's talking about how you have to essentially have inbound liquidity and outbound liquidity, right? And the other person's channel needs to have inbound liquidity and outbound liquidity. So I don't know if that's necessarily I don't know if that's necessarily a drawback, right? Do you think the liquidity is a drawback, or is that a feature of Lightning, right? The fact that you're not using a credit network and the fact that it's using real funds, I'm not sure if it's a drawback.
Liquidity is what you get when you remove debt from the system.
Yeah.
So like, if I don't want to just like introduce this entire like credit idea, then you're going to have liquidity problems. But that, thanks, Nate.
Nate's going to derail the whole rest of this, by the way, and it's okay. We love Nate. So.
Yeah. But overall, the Lightning Network is capable of immense amount of transactions, and the total amount of like capacity of the Lightning Network has actually gone down in Bitcoin terms, and it's not really stopping anything. I think there is a demand for more liquidity, so we can get these larger pathways, and that's like a lot of what we're doing with Rails. But overall, it's not really an issue, because, well, overall, what we're doing with Rails is I'm putting to work other people's Bitcoin that don't understand this. I mean, if John Carvalho was going in the direction of saying, Lightning is hard, well, I would agree completely. It is difficult, and maybe that's the second point here.
Yeah, that's his next point, right? The complexity breeds centralization, and most users don't tolerate the base LN experience. That, again, his claim.
I think he's right there. They don't tolerate it, which sets up a really awesome situation for us to build a really slick product that removes the complexity. Like that's the whole calling of a product designer, a product engineer. You have to remove the complexity, because if you were actually exposed to the complexity of the traditional finance system every time you went to swipe a card, well, you would lose your mind. And that's not to say that the traditional payment system has failed or it does not scale. I mean, it obviously has issues, but it also has product market fit because they actually made a simple product. I mean, you tap the card, you don't even have to swipe it anymore.
It's so good.
The thing works, but it's super inefficient, and I would love to replace it.
Yeah, but it works. But to the user experience, right? That's what it's all about. It's the user experience. I remember Walmart. I'm pretty sure it was Walmart. They were doing all of this testing, right, to figure out how they can trim fractions of a second off the transactions to speed it up. Just fractions of a second, just to make the user experience flow that much faster.
It's crazy because,
right?
When you tap your card, it says, transaction authorized, but it's not saying that the funds have actually moved. Like, that doesn't happen for sometimes weeks. I know, because, we receive Stripe payments, and it's like,
go.
well, when did this revenue came in so long ago, and now I'm just getting paid? Well, what was a holdup? And then there's chargeback risk, which is just
Mhm.
crazy. I mean, just the amount of fraud, which the like credit card industry just kind of papers over. But I would like to get paid sooner in Bitcoin, and have the funds move immediately when the payment is made. Otherwise, there's all this kind of chicanery that can be introduced.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I definitely feel, and I don't know if this is accurate or not, but that transaction finality um, goes hand in hand with people's personal responsibility, or sense of personal responsibility. You know, like that whole business of chargebacks and everything. I'm not saying that people shouldn't be able to return items and all that good stuff, but the reality is that oftentimes you're returning an item quite possibly just because you can. You may have gone to use it and you decided, all right, I used it. It was great for this one thing, and then I just go and return it. And guess what? You know, the store's going to eat that. The manufacturer's going to eat that. It's, to me, this is very much a symptom of the trusted third parties and the lack of personal responsibility. Because
100%.
you know, they could even
You make
argue.
a great point.
Oh,
Because I mean that's why Bronta fits in so much, because you there's no reversing this. You have to be responsible. And that means that you're going to do some risk assessments before you actually send the money. There's a cowboy saying, the biggest hole in your pocket is the one at the top. So you really can't you really
interesting.
can't blame other folks for the fact that you're losing money. You have to be responsible enough not to spend it.
It's a very good point. It's a very good point. Totally unrelated to what you're saying right here, but at the same time, for some reason, I feel like there's some stickiness to it. It's that other people don't scam us; we scam ourselves, right? So somebody else may give you a fake story, but then your ability to rationalize that story, create connections, and do all that, and then decide this is good, you know, that we scam ourselves. Anyways, moving on here. Moving on. Um, yeah, we're just flying by here. Thought an hour was going to be enough, but it's not. Okay, so the next things that John is criticizing, not going to disagree with him necessarily in terms of a personal experience with Lightning, right? Routing, right? Portrayed as the coolest part of LN. I can't disagree with that. But truly the worst aspect due to liquidity requirements, uncertainty, and complexity. So this kind of goes back to his previous statement. Any comment that you want to make about the routing? How do you feel about that? Or what's been, I mean, besides Amboss, what's been your personal experience?
I think routing is super cool. I don't know if you remember the payment that got a whole it was the first video of paying in Bitcoin at Stake and Shake.
Yep, I
You
do.
saw my buddy Eric. He actually made that payment. He was on video, and he told me it routed through your node, Jesse. It routed through satbase.org. And I had, I was not present for that. But I just thought that was so cool that it was like literally me, like my personal node, that actually got to participate in that payment and made a little bit of Bitcoin in doing so. That I was the connector. And I just thought that was the coolest thing. So he's absolutely right that it is the coolest part of the Lightning Network, because that's decentralization. It does introduce uncertainty. And the reason
Mhm.
it introduces uncertainty is because the Lightning Network is private by design, and everything is onion routed. And you don't know like what the state of another channel is. That's been an area of research for us, because we actually did this thing called channel balance interpolation. Just
Mhm.
we are using machine learning to actually predict that next hop, or
Yeah.
any channel on the Lightning Network, to reduce the amount of like transaction failures. And it just means the failures don't mean you lose money. It just means the payment doesn't go through on that first attempt. So you would have to, attempt it again.
Yeah. Nate brought up a good point over here. One of the biggest issues of these sorts of critiques is the word like centralization aren't defined and explained how that can be bad. They just say the word with implication that it is bad and then talk. Exactly, right? To that point, it's like we have to define what exactly we mean by the variables of centralization, because of course, as we've all learned from interacting with the traditional financial system, right, there are many instances where the centralization actually creates a more superior user experience, and the trade-off is worth it. So
Yeah.
to
Um,
Nate's point.
On that, there is a benefit to actually coordinating. You don't need to be fully centralized, but sometimes you do need a central coordinator.
Yeah.
And if you don't have that, then there's some loss in efficiency. But to the point about being decentralized, I just saw this phenomenal tweet about DeFi and Ethereum, because there are more Lightning nodes than there are Ethereum base chain nodes
No
in
way.
operation.
No
So
way.
I love that. So I think there is this, phrase called Dino, decentralized in name only, and
Yep.
Lightning is truly decentralized. There's not a whole lot of trust going on. Everyone's running their own Bitcoin node. It's cool. It's decentralized.
It's very nice. It's very nice, and I did not know that about ETH. So there you go, another nail in the coffin for proverbial coffin for ETH. All right. So here, moving
I'm gonna
on.
start feeling bad at some point.
Nope. I don't ever feel bad, man. I don't ever feel bad. You got guys like Mike Novogratz, right? Who yesterday was what was it that he said? Like he was he's invested in like one of these, one of these like ETH ETFs or something like that, and he was talking about the supply, right? Like how it just makes it's a no-brainer to be holding this, because there's eventually going to be a supply shock. It's like, dude, ETH has infinite supply. There is no supply cap. What are you talking about? Like, this is it's nonsense, right? And it's because he's rich and people know him. They're listening to him. It's anyway. It's just sad. It's just sad. Anyways, the next thing here was that he criticized here was the breaking changes, right? Constantly new complexity requires node runners to always run new, potentially insecure software. So for this, I mean, is that not the plight of all software to a certain extent?
It's a good point. I mean,
I don't think
software
that's
is not. You write it once and you're done. No, you have to continuously update it. And the thing about Lightning is it's not constrained by global network consensus like Bitcoin on the main chain is. So you're able to actually do the rapid innovation that you would want to do, and not be constrained by global consensus. So I think that's a really cool feature, not a bug, of Lightning.
Yeah. I'm gonna agree with you on that one. Well, all right, we're almost through it here. So the last one, obscure hacks. Okay, if you want to provide an LN wallet or app, you need to learn all the weird solutions like LN URL, miscellaneous patches and tools that people hacked in, because LN protocol devs and LN implementation companies rarely care about the user space. I don't think that's entirely incorrect. I can honestly say that, for me, one of the most undesirable user experiences about Lightning specifically is the fact that I have to generate an invoice. Like, I think that actually cripples and limits Lightning. Like, to me, like that, it doesn't make sense to me, and I've never actually understood it. And I know that there's like ways of making invoices that have no expiration time or anything, but it's like it's this extra level of complexity that just meh. Why am I dealing with this? What are your thoughts?
It's fair. I really like Lightning address because you can actually pack a ton of information into the Lightning address. So that's what we did when we made the bancolibre.com wallet, which is self-custody, liquid-based, but you get a Lightning address like from the start. And Nate actually flags KeySend, which is causing me so much heartburn right now. because that is invoiceless payments. As long as you know the public key of a node, you can actually send them a Lightning payment, but the record keeping is really bad for that. You don't really have a proper record of it. You can't get a proper receipt. So key send is nightmare for accounting, but it is invoiceless payments, and I love key send. In fact, on Amboss.space, we've built a key send dash or a billboard, so you can actually write a message inside of a key send payment, and if you include a message in there and send it to Amboss, like we'll post your message on our site on the homepage. So it's very fun. I like the hacky nature of it, but sometimes when you're building a business on it, to reduce the complexity, it's a big challenge.
Yeah, I do appreciate that. And Nate, I'm sorry, man. I don't know. I don't know about all these things. So I will definitely look into KeySend. So that's cool stuff. Here, let's move on to the last piece. And this is the thing that we were talking about a bit before, right? The regulatory trap, right? About being the money transmitter. So running an LSP business safely requires experienced lawyers for a constant changing compliance landscape. Services like Spark, liquid swaps, Taproot asset edge nodes will draw regulatory scrutiny the moment something goes wrong or they become too large. So again, I feel like this is true of any business that may be perceived as stepping on the toes of another already incubant business that has a moat, right? Like they've already got their their walled garden, and everybody's already paying to play and getting dinged on the tolls, and so I just don't see, again, I'm not seeing this necessarily as a criticism of Lightning per se. I think this is more just a criticism of KYC, AML, and regulatory concerns. What are your thoughts?
Overall, I think there's, with the way that laws are written, essentially is, and granted, I'm not a lawyer by any means.
Me neither.
But
Don't worry.
Having looked at this a bit, it's really, I think the regulated space is when you go money to money. And so a lot of these swaps definitely increase your risk profile. And I think there's a lot of hesitancy about actually going and taking a regulated path. I think, like, as Bitcoiners, like, we want to just like do code. Like, we don't want to have to hire lawyers and get licenses. Like, that defeats the whole purpose. We like just want permissionless innovation. But governments are going to government, and they're going to institute laws to introduce control. And if you want to play by their rules, and there's a lot of benefits to doing that, well, then you're going to have to take a regulated path, or manage your risk, or go completely anonymous, or any of that. And it's a huge life sacrifice for some of these folks that go completely NIM, but it's not for everyone. Like most of us, if we're running a business, especially, like, we're going to go get licenses. That's treated as a moat in the venture space. So, for those folks, then we've got software to help make it easy. But like, I mean, Bitcoiners are going to take every path. So good morning. Good morning.
Yeah. Buymyshitcoin.com. I like that one. That's a good one. All right. Yeah, I can't disagree. Again, Jesse, this is why I enjoy your takes, because your takes are reasonable, right? You're not just like coming from this total hopium, this hopium angle, essentially drinking through a fire hose, right? That everything is just going to be the most wonderful thing ever. So I really do appreciate that. Okay, so moving on here to our last piece. Okay, this is this is your post, and I wanted to know, because we're in the bull run, right? We're in the midst of the bull run, and as we said at the beginning, right, it's paper Bitcoin summer. And And here we go, right? You're asking, where are you finding signal outside the Bitcoin space? Now, I am going to turn that question back onto you and ask you, where are you finding signal outside the Bitcoin space?
Gotta tell you, it's hard. Um, like I think in the Bitcoin space, I found a lot of people that have found a sense of truth. I don't agree with everyone in the community. Um, and we went through a lot of my disagreements just with John Carvalho right there. But overall, um, you have to get some other ideas into the space.
Mm,
Some of them have been through books, and granted, my time is limited and becomes more and more so as Amboss grows. Um, but I think one book is like Radical Markets that just got my brain just exploding with ideas. To see some people that are just thinking radically, but not necessarily Bitcoin related. I also just want to keep up on all the innovation that's happening in machine learning, because a lot of the innovations that we're doing at Amboss is like graph machine learning, and I'm not going to get a ton of content about that. But
mm.
I want to keep learning. I want to keep building and applying new concepts to Bitcoin. I mean, like my background is environmental engineering, and I feel like I'm getting close to exhausting all of the applications that I've like brought individually.
Mhm.
Of course, I'll stumble onto some more, but I think going through like engineering college, I was really interested in biomimicry to like see how nature has solved problems
Mhm.
and see if we can apply some of those solutions. So I'm always looking for to just learn more and see how these concepts could be applied so I can build a better business. Really just trying to look for new signal, new ideas.
I like that. I like that a lot. I wrote down that book, by the way. I am a huge reader and listener of books. And to your point, right? I often look for signal outside of the space. I mean, I think that people who have gotten to know me in the space know that I'm pretty critical and a pain in the ass. So at some point, right, I can honestly say I don't find much signal in the Bitcoin space anymore. Granted, uh, that may come from the type of content or people that I'm following or whatever's showing up in my For You tab on Twitter. But yeah, if I'm gonna make one recommendation for one of these kind of books that helps wake people up. It's called, actually two of them. It's The Elephant in the Brain and The Comfort Crisis. Okay, those are the last two that really stuck with me. And it's honestly, it's about examining ourselves, right? Examining our own thought processes, examining that's the elephant in the brain, examining essentially how we blind ourselves, right? Or how we create stories which blind the truth so that we can follow through with specific action, right? And I found that this has been very helpful to me, not just in the Bitcoin space, but just in everyday life. So yeah, it's
I love it.
yeah, I think it's important, Jesse. I appreciate that, man. I appreciate your tweet about looking for signal outside the Bitcoin space. I think there's too many people that are trapped in the echo chamber, you know?
Yeah, I mean, if I have to have another conversation about price, I just might lose it. But like, MicroStrategy or kind of the Bitcoin treasury stuff. You know, there's more important stuff out there, and maybe I just need to touch some grass every once in a while. But just seeing the innovation, it gives me hope outside of just Bitcoin and just fixing the money, because there is more to be fixed out there.
Yeah.
And I want people to keep building.
Yeah, man, I like that. All right, we got another question here from ACP. All right, after this, we're probably gonna we're gonna wrap up after this. But so here we go. Does Jesse foresee Amboss being primarily for self-custodial whales or custodians who wish to offer their clients Lightning services?
Oof. Yeah.
I'll pop it back
I
up in
think,
case you want to reread.
yeah, the Lightning Network overall, I think at this stage, what it needs is, larger capital allocators so we can,
So you want my
provide
Bitcoin,
larger
is what you're telling me.
But like one thing about not taking self-custody or not taking custody of the assets is that we can't commingle funds. We can't get a whole bunch of individual contributors to all, participate in one node where the Bitcoin becomes useful. And I think that's where you need a custodian that is actually allowed to do the commingling of assets. I mean, you could get a whole bunch of plebs together and, all put in, your collective stacks, and it would be maybe a pretty meaningful Rails node, but it needs to be kind of scaled up. Those channels are quite large, and they serve a purpose for large scale commerce.
Very nice. All right, we got one last question here. One last question from Buy My Shitcoin Man. He's asking, what is your favorite shitcoin thing in life?
Oh man, can it be ice cream?
It could be ice cream, of course. You know what? I would even have to agree with that. I would even have to agree with ice cream being my favorite shitcoin thing too. Could very well be ice cream and maybe Reese's peanut butter cups.
Oh, those are so good.
Right?
Oh man.
Okay, question. Do you put them in the fridge? Do you freeze them? Oh man, it's a game changer. Put Reese's peanut butter cups in the fridge and then eat them cold.
Okay, I'm coming over.
This is what happens when you're trying to produce the diabetes. You come up with stupid ideas like this. Anyways, okay, Jesse, we are going to wrap up, but before we do, please let the viewers and listeners know, where can they find you? Where can they find Amboss?
Yeah, follow us. You can follow us on Noster, at Amboss.
Sorry.
Let's see. I'll start that over. But you can follow us on Noster at Amboss. Follow us on X at Amboss Tech, or check out our website, amboss.tech.
Very nice. Yeah, I tried to pull the whole screen so that but for some reason I'm still not so good at this stuff with the live stuff. Anyways, all right, all of that stuff is going to be in the show notes. And Jesse, of course, it was absolutely awesome to have you come on the show. Catch up, dude. This is amazing. I definitely want to have you back. Guys, this show is going to be uploaded to our audio-only platforms, Apple Podcasts, which also goes on to Spotify. And if you want to stream us sats, check us out on fountain.fm. Guys, that does it for this week on the Pleb Underground. We are going to go enjoy the weekend, some paper Bitcoin summer. I hope Jesse's going to enjoy some paper Bitcoin summer. That's right.
Let's go.
Have a great weekend, Jesse. Thank you so much again for joining us.
Thanks so much, Phil. Ciao.
Peace. Take it easy.